The sun beat down on the dusty Arizona territory where Strong Bear stood undefeated. His powerful frame cast a long shadow as he issued his challenge once more. "Defeat me and I'll give you everything." The gathered crowd knew his might was legendary among the Apache. His victories in battle countless. No man had ever bested him. That's when little Pia, barely 7 years old, with braided blonde hair and determined blue eyes, pushed through the onlookers. The daughter of settlers who'd perished in the harsh frontier. She'd been taken in by the tribe months ago. A hush fell over the crowd as she picked up the rope. The warrior's laugh echoed across the valley. What neither knew was that this simple contest would forge a bond stronger than blood. How could one small girl change the heart of the mightiest warrior in all the territory? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Apache called him Strong Bear for good reason. His broad shoulders and towering frame cast long shadows across the tribal grounds as he moved with the confident stride of a man who had never known defeat. While others gathered around evening fires, sharing stories and laughter, Strong Bear preferred solitude. His dwelling stood apart from the others, larger yet somehow emptier. The bear walks alone, elders would say, nodding with understanding. His isolation was not from lack of respect, quite the opposite. 23 summers had passed since his first battle, when as a boy of 15 he had slain 3 Comanche warriors who threatened their hunting party. Since that day, songs had been sung of his courage, his name whispered with reverence. Strong Bear fingered the eagle claw hanging at his chest, remembering the day he earned it. His father, Grey Wolf, had watched him make his first kill, a magnificent eagle taken with a single arrow. "The eagle's spirit will give you strength," Grey Wolf had told him, helping him fashion the claw into a necklace. "Wear it with honor." That was before the sickness took Grey Wolf, and so many others. Now Strong Bear was the tribe's shield, their protector. His challenges had become ritual, issued monthly when the moon was full. "Defeat me and I'll give you everything," he would declare, knowing none would succeed. Some tried for pride, others for glory, all failed. The challenge itself had become hollow, yet he continued the tradition like a man walking a familiar path without remembering why the journey began. At night, alone in his dwelling, Strong Bear sometimes removed his warrior's garb and sat before the small fire, wondering what everything truly meant. He possessed little beyond his weapons, his horse, and his reputation. No wife warmed his sleeping furs. No children called him father. The great Strong Bear, feared by enemies and revered by his people, owned nothing that truly mattered. He had watched the white child from afar since her arrival. The tribe had found her clutching her dead mother's hand after an attack on a settler wagon train. Not by Apache hands, but by bandits who left no survivors except the hidden child. Medicine Woman had taken her in, taught her their way. Strong Bear had seen how the girl observed everything with eyes too wise for her few years. "What do you make of the pale child?" Chief Running Elk had asked him moons ago. "She has spirit," Strong Bear had answered simply. He recognized something in her silent determination, perhaps a reflection of his own childhood solitude. The girl rarely spoke, but Strong Bear had noticed how she watched during his challenge rituals, her blue eyes following his movements with unusual intensity. Unlike the other children who feared him, she showed no terror when his path crossed hers, merely stepping aside with a curious gaze that somehow made him feel seen in a way that unsettled him. The morning of the challenge, Strong Bear had performed his usual preparations, ritual bath in the cold stream, prayers to the spirits, application of red ochre to his chest in ancient patterns. As he walked to the central grounds, the eagle claw thumped against his chest with each step, a rhythm that had accompanied him through countless victories. He had not expected anything different this day. The challenge was merely tradition now, his victories assumed before they occurred. When he roared his challenge to the gathered tribe, his eyes had momentarily met those of the white child, standing beside Medicine Woman. Something passed between them, a flicker of recognition perhaps. Still, nothing prepared him for what came next. The crowd's reaction when the small girl stepped forward still echoed in his mind. Their laughter had seemed appropriate. What chance did this tiny pale creature have against him? Yet as she approached, something in her determined gaze stirred an unfamiliar feeling in his chest. For the first time in many years, uncertainty had flickered within Strong Bear. When she gripped the rope, her small hands white-knuckled with determination, Strong Bear had felt the eagle claw grow suddenly heavy against his skin. The necklace that had witnessed every victory now seemed to burn against his chest as he faced the most unexpected challenger of his life. No one, including Strong Bear himself, could have predicted how this simple contest would forever change the greatest warrior the tribe had ever known. Pia sat cross-legged at the edge of the Apache camp, small fingers turning the tiny metal key on her tin music box. The melody played haltingly, damaged like everything else from her old life. 3 notes, a scratching sound, 2 more notes, then silence. She closed her eyes and could almost hear the full song as her mother once hummed it during long evenings in their cabin. Medicine Woman called her Pia because those were the sounds the child had repeated when they found her. Perhaps it was her name, perhaps something else entirely. The Apache woman had been kind, wrapping her in soft rabbit skins when they discovered her clutching her dead mother's hand. Pia remembered little of that day. Beyond the sounds, men shouting, horses screaming, the terrible thunder of guns, then a silence broken only by her own sobbing. "Little one, come eat," Medicine Woman called in Apache, a language Pia now partially understood after 4 changing of the moons. She tucked the music box into the pocket of her deerskin dress, the only item from her previous life that she had managed to keep. The Apache clothes felt strange against her skin, but she had grown accustomed to their texture, just as she had grown accustomed to sleeping in the teepee with Medicine Woman and eating food prepared in ways her mother never cooked. The other children regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and distance. Some played with her, showing her how to fashion dolls from corn husks or chase lizards between the rocks. Others kept their distance, whispering white eyes when she passed. Pia didn't mind. She understood being different. Even before, on the wagon train, she had been quieter than the other children, preferring to watch rather than join their noisy games. At night, when the camp grew still and only the sound of nightbirds broke the silence, Pia would sometimes cry silently into her sleeping furs. She missed her father's deep voice reading from his Bible by lamplight. She missed her mother's soft hands braiding her hair each morning. These memories were fading like footprints in sand, and this frightened her more than anything. "Your spirit is strong," Medicine Woman told her one evening, her weathered hands gently untangling Pia's blonde hair. "It bends like the willow in the storm but does not break." Pia didn't fully understand the words, but the woman's tone comforted her. Medicine Woman had tried to teach her Apache ways, how to grind corn between stones, how to weave simple baskets from reeds, how to stay silent when silence was needed. Pia learned quickly, her small hands soon growing nimble at tasks that connected her to this new life. Yet she remained an outsider, a pale ghost, among the tribe. She had first noticed Strong Bear during a celebration after a successful hunt, while others danced around the fire. He stood apart, magnificent and solitary. Something about his isolation called to her own loneliness. She watched him from behind Medicine Woman's skirts, fascinated by his strength and the respect others showed him. When he looked in her direction once, she didn't hide as the other children did. Their eyes met briefly across the firelight, and Pia felt no fear, only recognition of something familiar in his solitude. Each full moon she watched his challenge ritual with growing interest. "Defeat me and I'll give you everything," he would call out, his voice carrying across the grounds. The words stirred something in Pia. Everything. What was everything? A home, a family, belonging. The things she had lost and desperately wanted again. That morning, as Strong Bear issued his challenge yet again, Pia felt her heart beating rapidly against her ribs. Medicine Woman had told her stories of the great warrior, how he had never been defeated, how his strength was blessed by the spirits. But Pia had watched him when no one else was looking. She had seen moments when weariness settled on his broad shoulders, when his eyes reflected the same emptiness she felt inside. Before she fully understood what she was doing, Pia had stepped forward through the crowd. The laughter that rippled through the gathered tribe didn't bother her. She was used to being the object of amusement or pity. The music box pressed against her side from within her pocket as she approached the mighty warrior, a small reminder of a past life giving her courage to reach for a new one. As her hands grasped the rough hemp of the challenge rope, Pia looked up into Strong Bear's surprised face and saw for the first time since being taken in by the Apache, a future that might include more than just survival. A hushed silence fell over the gathered tribe as the small white girl approached Strong Bear. The warrior's initial laughter faded into bewilderment as Pia reached for the challenge rope. Some in the crowd chuckled nervously, others whispered behind their hands. Medicine Woman watched with knowing eyes, making no move to stop what was unfolding. "Go back to the women, little one," Strong Bear said in Apache, his deep voice carrying a gentleness rarely heard. "This is not a game for children." Pia understood enough to shake her head firmly. Her blue eyes locked on his dark ones. "I want everything," she replied in halting Apache, the words carefully practiced from hearing his challenge month after month. Strong Bear looked to the tribal elders, unsure how to proceed. Chief Running Elk gave an almost imperceptible nod. The contest could not be refused once accepted, such was tradition. With a sigh that carried resignation rather than concern, Strong Bear knelt to bring himself closer to her height, though he still towered above her. "Very well, little white bird," he said, using the name some in the tribe had given her. He adjusted his red bandana, the one he had worn for every challenge since his youth, tightening it around his wrist, as was his custom before any contest. The red cloth had been his first trophy, taken from a Mexican trader who had unwisely challenged him many summers ago. It had witnessed every victory since. The rules were simple: a line scratched in the dirt, the rope between contestants, victory to whoever pulled the other across. Strong Bear took position, his massive hands dwarfing the coarse hemp rope. Pia's small fingers could barely wrap around its thickness. A ripple of amusement passed through the onlookers. "Begin," called out Elder White Cloud, his voice cracking with age. Strong Bear gave the gentlest of tugs, intending merely to end this foolishness quickly without harming the child. To his surprise, Pia did not budge. Her tiny feet had found purchase against a small rock embedded in the dirt, her face a mask of determination. Strong Bear frowned slightly and pulled with marginally more force. Pia leaned back, using her slight weight as counterbalance. The strategy would fail against any real strength, but Strong Bear found himself unwilling to exert his full power. Something in her determination touched a forgotten place within him. "She has heart," someone murmured from the crowd. "Heart does not win against strength," another replied. Strong Bear felt something unexpected, respect for this tiny opponent. He increased his pull gradually, still using only a fraction of his true strength. Sweat beaded on Pia's forehead as she strained against him, her face reddening with effort. For a moment, she slid forward an inch, and a murmur rose from the crowd. Then Pia did something unexpected. Instead of continuing to pull backward, she suddenly stepped forward and to the side. The abrupt change in tension and direction caught Strong Bear by surprise. Instinctively, he compensated by pulling harder in the opposite direction. In that split second of adjustment, his foot slipped on the morning dew-dampened earth. Time seemed to slow. Strong Bear felt himself losing balance, his weight shifting forward. The red bandana came loose from his wrist as he reached out to catch himself. Before the mighty warrior could recover, his knee had touched the ground across the line, the undeniable sign of defeat. Absolute silence descended. Even the birds seemed to quiet their morning songs. Strong Bear knelt there, one knee in the dirt, the loose challenge rope in his hands, staring at the small girl who stood barely reaching his chest. Even while he knelt, Pia's face registered shock at what had just occurred, her own surprise mirroring his. For 20 summers no man had bested Strong Bear. Now a 7 winters child had done what warriors could not. The silence stretched until a single laugh broke it. Elder White Cloud, his ancient face creased with delight. "The spirits have spoken today," the elder announced. "The challenge is met and won." Strong Bear rose slowly to his full height, the red bandana now lying in the dirt between them. Tradition demanded acknowledgement of defeat. With movements stiff, with unaccustomed humility, he reached down, picked up the bandana, and extended it toward Pia. "You have won, little white bird," he said formally, the words strange on his tongue. "As promised, I give you everything." Pia reached out hesitantly, taking the offered bandana. As her fingers touched the fabric, neither could have known this small red cloth would become the first thread in a bond stronger than any challenge rope. The days following the challenge brought whispers throughout the Apache camp. Strong Bear felt their eyes upon him, questioning what his defeat might mean. Everything, he had promised. But what was everything to a warrior who lived simply, whose treasures were his weapons and his honor? He avoided the central fires for 3 nights, taking his meals alone in his dwelling. On the 4th morning he emerged to find Pia sitting cross-legged outside his entrance, the red bandana tied around her small wrist. She looked up at him, neither demanding nor afraid, simply waiting. "What do you want, little white bird?" Strong Bear asked, his voice gruff with disuse. Pia considered the question carefully before answering in her limited Apache. "To learn," she said finally. Strong Bear frowned. "Learn what?" She gestured to his bow leaning against the dwelling wall. "That, and this." Her hand swept across the camp, encompassing the Apache world. Strong Bear felt a strange discomfort. Teaching was for elders, for women with children, not for warriors. Yet he had promised everything. With a reluctant nod, he motioned for her to follow. That day began a strange new routine. Each morning Pia would appear at his dwelling, silent but expectant. Strong Bear would lead her through simple tasks, gathering kindling, identifying animal tracks, learning to move quietly through brush. He spoke little, demonstrating rather than explaining. Pia watched with intense concentration, mimicking his movements with surprising accuracy. The tribe observed this curious arrangement with mixed reactions. Some smiled secretly, seeing the softening of the fierce warrior. Others frowned, concerned about a white child learning Apache ways. Medicine Woman nodded approvingly whenever they passed her dwelling. "You waste time with the pale child," Black Hawk, a young warrior eager to prove himself, commented one evening. "What can she offer our people?" Strong Bear's answering look silenced further comments. "She won your challenge," others whispered, when Black Hawk walked away. The young warrior's scowl deepened. On the 7th day, Strong Bear took Pia to the river. He showed her how to find the shallow crossing, how to test stones before trusting her weight to them. Midway across, Pia slipped on a mossy rock, plunging into the current. Without hesitation, Strong Bear reached in, pulling her sputtering from the water. "I'm sorry," she said, shivering against him. Strong Bear felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. "No sorrow needed. Water teaches better than I can." Setting her down on the bank, he added gruffly, "You must learn to swim." That evening, as Pia sat near his fire drying her clothes, Strong Bear found himself studying her small face in the flickering light. She noticed his gaze and met it steadily, without the fear or awe others showed him. "Why did you take my challenge?" he asked suddenly. Pia considered before answering. "You looked alone," she said finally, struggling with the Apache word. "Like me." Strong Bear turned away, uncomfortable with her perception. Taking one of his arrows, he broke the tip off deliberately. As Pia watched curiously, he began working the broken arrowhead with a small stone tool, smoothing its edges, drilling a tiny hole near its base. "This was a weapon," he explained, holding up the modified arrowhead. Now it will be protection. He threaded a leather string through the hole, creating a pendant. Reaching over, he placed it around Pia's neck. Wear this. It will keep you safe when I cannot. Pia touched the arrowhead pendant with reverent fingers. Thank you, she whispered in English, the words strange after so many days of Apache. Strong Bear didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. He nodded awkwardly, then returned to tending the fire. Later that night, after Pia had fallen asleep near his hearth, Strong Bear sat watching her small form, wrapped in one of his fur blankets. Something had changed inside him, something he couldn't name. The mighty warrior, who feared nothing, found himself afraid of the feelings this small child stirred. Medicine Woman found him there at dawn, still seated, still watching over the sleeping child. She cannot return to her people, Medicine Woman said softly. The spirits have placed her in your path. I am a warrior, Strong Bear replied, not a father. Medicine Woman's weathered face creased in a smile. Perhaps the greatest warrior must learn to be both. As if sensing their conversation, Pia stirred, her hand instinctively finding the arrowhead pendant at her neck. Strong Bear watched as her eyes opened, immediately seeking him in the morning light. When she smiled, hesitant but trusting, he felt the first crack in the wall he had built around his heart since boyhood. Come, he said, rising. Today we track deer. As Pia eagerly followed him from the dwelling, the broken arrowhead bounced against her chest, no longer a weapon of war, but a symbol of something neither of them could yet name. As the moon completed its cycle, Strong Bear and Pia established a rhythm to their days. Morning hunts, afternoon lessons, evenings by the fire. The tribe had grown accustomed to seeing the massive warrior accompanied by his small shadow. What began as reluctant obligations slowly transformed into routine, then into something neither would name. Language remained their greatest barrier. Pia's Apache improved daily, but cultural concepts often eluded her. Strong Bear found himself wanting to explain things beyond his limited vocabulary. One evening, as they sat outside his dwelling counting stars, frustration crossed his face as he tried to teach her the Apache names for constellations. No, he said for the third time as Pia mispronounced the word for the Great Bear. Listen. Shush, he emphasized each syllable, pointing upward at the formation. Pia tried again, her tongue struggling with the unfamiliar sounds. Shush, shush. Strong Bear sighed, then paused as an idea formed. He rose abruptly and entered his dwelling, returning with a small knife and several straight sticks. Sitting cross-legged beside her, he began carefully notching one stick. One, he said in Apache, showing her a single notch. Dala, Pia repeated carefully. He nodded and added another notch. 2, Nucky. They continued until 10. Strong Bear patiently correcting her pronunciation. Then Pia took the knife from his massive hand, her small fingers careful with the sharp blade. On the opposite side of each stick, she carved crude English numerals. 1, she said, showing him the first stick, then flipping it over. Dala. Strong Bear's brow furrowed as he studied the strange mark. 1, he attempted, the English word awkward on his tongue. Pia's delighted laugh surprised them both. It was the first time Strong Bear had heard the sound from her, bright and clear in the evening air. Something warmed in his chest at the sound. Each night thereafter, they added to their collection of counting sticks. Strong Bear carved Apache symbols. Pia added English equivalents. They created sticks for animals, for weather, for emotion. The simple system bridged the gap between their worlds. Father, Pia said, one evening, holding up a new stick with the Apache symbol for family. Strong Bear stared at the symbol, then at her expectant face. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. That is not right, he said finally, his voice rough. I am not your father. Pia's face fell, but she persisted. Flipping the stick, she showed him the English side where she had carved father in careful letters. In my old words, father means... She struggled to explain in Apache. I know what it means, Strong Bear interrupted. I am your teacher, not your father. Pia regarded him steadily, wisdom beyond her years in her gaze. Teacher, she agreed finally, setting the stick aside. That night, after Pia had fallen asleep by his fire as had become her custom, Strong Bear examined the discarded family stick. His fingers traced the symbols, something uncomfortable stirring within him. He had been called many things: warrior, hunter, champion, but never father. The word frightened him more than any battle cry. The next morning Black Hawk approached as Strong Bear taught Pia to string a small bow he had fashioned for her. The council questions why you teach Apache ways to the white child, Black Hawk said, his tone challenging. Some say you forget your place as a warrior. Strong Bear continued adjusting the bowstring. Some should mind their own concerns. She will never be Apache, Black Hawk persisted. Her skin, her eyes, they mark her as other. Strong Bear straightened to his full height, towering over the younger warrior. And what marks a true Apache? Skin, eyes, his voice lowered dangerously. Or heart? Black Hawk retreated a step before his pride reasserted itself. The council wishes to speak with you, alone. His eyes flicked meaningfully to Pia. After the warrior left, Pia looked up questioningly. Trouble? Strong Bear considered lying, then decided against it. Their counting sticks had built truth between them. Perhaps, he admitted, some do not understand. Understand what? Strong Bear found himself without answer. What was there to understand about this strange arrangement? He himself could not explain how the child he had reluctantly accepted as student had become essential to his days. That afternoon, before attending the council, Strong Bear added a new symbol to their collection of counting sticks. On one side he carved the Apache symbol for guardian, different from father, yet carrying responsibility, care, protection. On the reverse he left it blank, uncertain what English word might correspond. He placed it carefully atop their growing pile, a silent acknowledgement of what was growing between them, something without easy translation in either language, yet understood in the shared silence of their evenings beneath the stars. The tribal council had spoken late into the evening. Strong Bear stood before the elders, his face impassive, despite the heated debate that swirled around him. Chief Running Elk had questioned him about his intentions with the white child. Elder White Cloud had expressed concerns about teaching Apache ways to an outsider. Black Hawk had spoken passionately about preserving tribal purity. Through it all, Strong Bear had remained silent, listening. Only when directly addressed by the chief did he speak. She won my challenge fairly, he stated simply. I gave my word. Your word was to give everything, Chief Running Elk reminded him. Not to make her Apache. Strong Bear met his gaze steadily. I am teaching her to survive in our world. Is that not mercy? The council ended without resolution, merely a warning that the matter would be revisited after the next moon. As Strong Bear left the council lodge, he found Medicine Woman waiting, her ancient face revealing nothing. Walk with me, she said. Not a request, but a command. They moved in silence toward her dwelling at the edge of the camp. Medicine Woman was the oldest member of the tribe, her exact age unknown. Some said she had seen 80 winters, others claimed more. Her power came not from physical strength, but from wisdom accumulated through decades of healing, both bodies and spirits. Inside her dwelling, dried herbs hung from the center pole, and small pouches of remedies lined the walls. The air smelled of sage and sweet grass. She gestured for Strong Bear to sit. You were once a small boy with skinned knees, she began, stoking her small fire. You cried when your first dog died. You feared the dark until your 8th summer. Strong Bear shifted uncomfortably. Few remembered him as anything but the mighty warrior he had become. I remember the boy beneath the warrior, she continued, just as I see the father emerging beneath the teacher. I am not her father, Strong Bear protested. Medicine Woman's laugh was like dry leaves rustling. You feed her, protect her, teach her. You watch her sleep to ensure she breathes. What would you call this? Strong Bear had no answer. Medicine Woman reached for a small parfluck bag beside her, withdrawing an object wrapped in soft buckskin. Carefully she unwrapped it, revealing an ancient shell, its surface etched with symbols and polished by generations of handling. This belonged to my grandmother's grandmother, she explained. When she fled from enemies with her infant son, my grandfather's father, she had nothing to feed him. This shell caught the dewdrops each morning, enough to keep him alive until they reached safety. Her gnarled finger traced the shell's spiral. Not her blood, you see. Strong Bear frowned. I don't understand. My grandmother's grandmother found the infant beside his dead mother after a raid. He was not her child by birth, but became hers by heart. Medicine Woman's eyes held Strong Bear's. Family is not always made from shared blood. Strong Bear stared at the shell, understanding slowly dawning. The council says she cannot be Apache. The council sees with old eyes sometimes, Medicine Woman replied. They forget that our tribe has always taken in those who belonged with us, regardless of where they began. She rewrapped the shell carefully. Tomorrow is the medicine moon. Bring the child to me at midday. As Strong Bear rose to leave, Medicine Woman pressed the wrapped shell into his hands. Keep this until tomorrow. Let its story speak to your dreams. That night, with Pia sleeping peacefully nearby, Strong Bear unwrapped the sacred shell. In the firelight, its polished surface gleamed with an inner light. He thought of the desperate woman centuries ago, using this delicate object to collect dewdrops for a child not her own. Had she questioned her actions as he questioned him? Had she lain awake wondering if she had the right to claim the child as family? His fingers found the counting stick he had carved with the symbol for guardian. Beside it lay the one Pia had marked father, the one he had rejected. The distance between those two concepts suddenly seemed both vast and insignificant. As dawn approached, Strong Bear finally drifted to sleep, the ancient shell clutched in his palm. He dreamed of dewdrops, catching morning light, each one reflecting a small face looking up at him with trust. In the dream he heard Medicine Woman's voice. Family is made by heart. When he woke, Pia was already up, carefully rekindling the fire without waking him. The simple consideration of the act struck him deeply. Watching her small, confident movements around his dwelling, movements that mimicked his own, Strong Bear felt something shift within his chest, like ice breaking on a river after a long winter. We visit Medicine Woman today, he said, his voice gentler than usual. Pia looked up, surprise and pleasure crossing her face. Together, Strong Bear nodded, the sacred shell still warm in his palm. Together, the visit to Medicine Woman had changed something between them. Strong Bear returned the sacred shell, but kept its wisdom. Medicine Woman had performed a small blessing ceremony over Pia, marking her forehead with a mixture of herbs and earth. She belongs to the land now, the old woman had declared, and the land recognizes its own. 3 days later, Strong Bear decided it was time. He had been teaching Pia tracking, showing her how to read the subtle signs, animals left behind. She had practiced with the small bow he crafted for her, until her fingers blistered, then calloused. Now, before the full tribe, he would test her learning. Today we hunt, he announced at dawn. Pia's eyes widened with excitement and nervousness. Black Hawk, watching from nearby, scoffed loudly. The white girl plays at being Apache. Strong Bear ignored him, helping Pia. He painted her face with the traditional markings of a first hunt, a single stripe across each cheek, connecting to a circle on the forehead, usually reserved for Apache boys approaching manhood. The markings on a small white girl drew stares and whispers. Remember, Strong Bear instructed as they left the village. The hunter does not take from greed, only from need. We honor what the land provides. Pia nodded solemnly, repeating the prayer he had taught her. Her Apache pronunciation had improved dramatically, the words flowing more naturally now. She clutched her small bow tightly, 5 arrows in the quiver at her back. They traveled silently for nearly 2 hours, moving deeper into the forest that bordered their territory. Strong Bear occasionally pointed out signs, disturbed earth, broken twigs, droppings, teaching without words. Pia absorbed everything, her blue eyes sharp and observant. Near a small stream, Strong Bear stopped suddenly, crouching low. He pointed silently to fresh tracks by the water's edge. Rabbit. He gestured for Pia to lead now, to show what she had learned. With a deep breath, Pia moved forward, placing her feet carefully as he had taught her. Strong Bear watched with quiet pride as she analyzed the tracks, determined the direction, and began to follow. Her small body moved with growing confidence, her eyes constantly scanning the ground and surrounding brush. After tracking for several minutes, she froze, then slowly pointed. Through the undergrowth, a rabbit sat alert, but unaware of their presence. Strong Bear nodded encouragingly, watching as Pierre carefully nocked an arrow to her bow. The first shot missed, flying over the startled rabbit's head. As it bounded away, disappointment flashed across Pierre's face, but Strong Bear gently tapped her shoulder and pointed. The rabbit had stopped again, partially hidden behind a fallen log. Pierre took a steadying breath, drew her second arrow, and released. This time, the arrow found its mark. The rabbit fell with a small thump. For a moment, neither moved. Then Pierre looked up at Strong Bear, her expression a complex mixture of pride and sadness. He nodded, understanding her conflict. "Life and death are connected," he said softly. "One cannot exist without the other." Together they approached the fallen rabbit. Strong Bear showed her how to thank the animal spirit, teaching her the ancient words of gratitude. Then he helped her prepare the rabbit, explaining how each part would be used: meat for food, fur for clothing, bones for tools, nothing wasted, everything honored. As Pierre worked, a hawk circled overhead, crying out sharply before dropping a feather that spiraled down, landing near them. Strong Bear's breath caught a sign from the spirits. He retrieved the feather solemnly. "This is a message," he explained, showing her the perfect tail feather. "The spirits acknowledge your first hunt." Using the rabbit's blood, he dyed the tip of the feather red, then carefully wove it into Pierre's blonde braid. "You wear this with honor," he said. "It shows you understand the balance of taking life to sustain life." Pierre touched the feather reverently. "Thank you," she said, the English words slipping out in her emotion. Strong Bear understood the meaning, if not the words. He placed a hand on her shoulder, the first time he had initiated such contact. "You did well today," he said. "Your eyes are sharp, your hands steady." They returned to the village with the rabbit and several herbs Strong Bear had gathered. As they approached, the tribe gathered to witness Pierre's return from her first hunt. Some nodded approvingly at the feather in her hair and the game she carried. Others, including Black Hawk, turned away. Medicine Woman stepped forward, examining the rabbit and the feather. "A good hunt," she proclaimed loudly, ensuring all could hear. "The child has learned well." That evening, as the entire tribe shared the meal that included Pierre's rabbit, Strong Bear watched her sitting tall, despite the continuing mixed reactions. The feather in her hair caught the firelight, its red tip glowing. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel the emotion that had been growing inside him. Pride. Not the pride of a teacher for a student, but the fierce, protective pride of a father for his child. The tension within the tribe grew with each passing day. What had begun as curiosity about Strong Bear's unusual ward had evolved into concern, then division. The successful hunt had only heightened the discord. Some saw it as proof of Pierre's adaptation, others as inappropriate teaching of sacred ways to an outsider. Strong Bear sensed the growing discord, but continued Pierre's education with quiet determination. She now spoke Apache with increasing fluency, dressed in tribal clothing adorned with her own needlework, and moved through the camp with the natural grace of a child, becoming at home in her surroundings. "She imitates us but can never be us," Black Hawk declared loudly one evening as Pierre demonstrated a traditional dance she had learned from the young girls. Her eyes remained blue, her hair yellow as summer grass. Medicine Woman, sitting nearby, clicked her tongue disapprovingly. "And your thoughts remain dark as winter night, young warrior. Perhaps that is what needs changing." Black Hawk was not alone in his concerns. Several families kept their distance, pulling their children away when Pierre approached. Others welcomed her, impressed by her quick learning and respectful manner. The tribe was splitting into factions. Chief Running Elk could no longer ignore the growing division. On the night of the harvest moon, he summoned the tribal council, including Strong Bear. Medicine Woman attended as the keeper of tribal traditions. Black Hawk was invited to speak for those with concerns. As the council gathered in the central lodge, Strong Bear instructed Pia to remain in his dwelling. The elders must talk, he explained, brushing a strand of blonde hair from her forehead, a gesture that had become natural to him. I will return when they finish. They talk about me, Pia said, not a question but a statement. Her perception had sharpened along with her language skills. Strong Bear did not lie. Yes. Do they want me to leave? Her voice remained steady, but her fingers clutched the feather she still wore in her hair. Some do, he admitted. Others do not. And you? Her blue eyes held his, unflinching. Strong Bear touched the arrowhead pendant she wore around her neck. I want what protects you best. In the council lodge, the air was thick with smoke from the sacred pipe passed among the elders. Chief Running Elk opened the discussion with formal gravity. Our tribe faces division over the white child, he stated. We must resolve this matter for the good of all. Black Hawk spoke first, his voice passionate. The Apache ways are sacred, passed through blood from generation to generation. Teaching them to this outsider dishonors our ancestors. Strong Bear has forgotten his place as a warrior, playing father to a white child while enemies gather at our borders. Murmurs of agreement rose from several elders. Strong Bear remained impassive, waiting his turn as tradition required. Elder White Cloud spoke next. I have watched the child. She learns our ways with respect, not mockery. She takes only what is given, gives thanks for what she receives. Are these not the values we teach our own children? She cannot change her skin, another elder countered. When she grows, will she not return to her people? Will she not take our secrets with her? The debate continued as the moon rose higher. Strong Bear listened to all sides, understanding their concerns while feeling a growing certainty in his own heart. When finally called upon to speak, he rose to his full height. I accepted the child because she won my challenge fairly, he began. I taught her our ways because she needed to survive. I protected her because she could not protect herself. He paused, the next words difficult for the proud warrior. I have come to care for her as a father cares for his daughter. Shocked silence followed this admission. Strong Bear, the mighty warrior who had never shown weakness, now exposed his heart before the council. If the tribe rejects her, he continued, his voice steady, then I must leave with her. This is what I have promised, everything. My protection, my loyalty, my home. Chief Running Elk considered Strong Bear's words carefully. After long deliberation, he produced 2 stones from his medicine pouch, one white, one black. We will decide as our ancestors did, he announced. Each council member will hold either the white stone for acceptance or the black stone for rejection. The majority will determine the child's fate. The stones were passed among the 9 council members, each making their choice in private meditation. When collected in the chief's ceremonial bowl, 4 white stones and 4 black stones lay together. The tribe remained evenly divided. It falls to Strong Bear to cast the deciding stone, Chief Running Elk declared, offering both stones to the warrior. Strong Bear looked at the stones in his palm, one signifying Pia's acceptance, one her rejection. In that moment, all his doubts vanished, like morning mist. With unwavering certainty, he placed the white stone in the bowl. The council has spoken, Chief Running Elk announced. The child remains among us, but he added, raising his hand for silence, she must prove herself worthy through the traditional adoption ceremony. She must be truly Apache in heart, if not in blood. As Strong Bear left the council lodge, the white stone was pressed into his hand by Elder White Cloud. Keep this, the old man whispered, to remind you that even the hardest decisions can bring clarity. Strong Bear returned to his dwelling where Pia waited, her face lighting up at his arrival. He showed her the white stone, explaining its significance. Does this mean I stay? She asked. Yes, Strong Bear replied. But there is more work ahead. Pia took the white stone, turning it over in her small hands. I will not disappoint you, she promised. Strong Bear felt a rare smile cross his face. You never have. Preparations for the adoption ceremony consumed the following days. Such rituals were rare among the Apache, performed only when circumstances demanded the formal acceptance of an outsider into the tribe. The last had occurred before Strong Bear's birth. Medicine Woman directed the preparations, instructing Strong Bear in the ancient protocols. The ceremony binds souls, she explained while grinding special pigments. After this she will be your daughter in the eyes of all ancestors. Strong Bear nodded solemnly, and in the eyes of the tribe. Those who wish to see will see, Medicine Woman replied. Those who refuse will always be blind. For Pia, the preparations were both exciting and frightening. She was bathed in herb-infused water, her skin rubbed with sacred oils, her hair adorned with tiny shells and beads. Throughout the process, she was taught ceremonial phrases in the oldest Apache dialect, words that even many tribal members no longer understood. You must speak these perfectly, Medicine Woman instructed, her weathered hands gentle but firm on Pia's shoulders. The ancestors will be listening. The night before the ceremony, Strong Bear kept a solitary vigil by the river, fasting and praying as tradition required. Under the stars he contemplated the journey that had brought him to this moment. From fearsome warrior to reluctant teacher to father, the word no longer frightened him as it once had. As dawn broke, the entire tribe gathered in a wide circle around the central fire. Strong Bear arrived wearing his finest ceremonial attire, buckskin leggings adorned with porcupine quills, chest bare but for warrior markings, painted in sacred ochre, hair braided with hawk feathers, signifying courage. Pia was led to the circle by Medicine Woman. She wore a simple white deerskin dress, her face painted with blue circles around her eyes, not to disguise her blue eyes, but to honor them as a gift from her birth ancestors. Chief Running Elk began the ceremony, raising his arms to the four directions. We stand between worlds today, he intoned, between what was and what will be. At his signal, female tribal members began a low, rhythmic chant. Medicine Woman led Pia to the center of the circle where Strong Bear waited. From a ceremonial bundle, the old woman withdrew a blanket, unlike any Pia had seen before. Woven from the finest fibers, its pattern told the Apache creation story in intricate symbols and images. The border contained protective spirits to guard those wrapped within its embrace. This blanket has witnessed every adoption in our tribe's memory, Medicine Woman explained for all to hear. It holds the spirits of all who came before, all who found family beyond blood. She draped the blanket across Strong Bear's broad shoulders, then guided Pia to stand before him. Following Medicine Woman's earlier instructions, Strong Bear knelt to Pia's height. With gentle movements, he opened the blanket like wings, enfolding Pia within its embrace and drawing her close to his chest. Together, wrapped in the ancient fabric, they turned slowly to face each direction. As Medicine Woman spoke the ritual words, the blanket created a small, intimate world around them, where Pia could feel Strong Bear's heartbeat against her back, and he could feel her trembling gradually subside. Blood of my spirit, bone of my heart, Strong Bear recited in the ancient dialect, the unfamiliar words coming more easily than he expected. I claim you as my own before all ancestors. Pia responded with the memorized phrases, her young voice clear in the hushed circle. Spirit of my blood, heart of my bone, I enter your lodge as daughter, not stranger. Medicine Woman circled them 3 times, sprinkling sacred herbs that smoked and sparked when they touched the fire. The ancestors hear and witness, she declared. What is joined in spirit cannot be broken by man. Chief Running Elk approached with a small bowl of red ochre. Dipping his thumb in the sacred paint, he marked Strong Bear's forehead, then Pia's with matching symbols. The mark of family, he pronounced. Visible to all, carried within always. Still wrapped together in the blanket, Strong Bear and Pia completed the final turn. As they faced east, where the sun now stood fully above the horizon, Strong Bear felt a profound shift within himself, as if some essential piece that had been missing suddenly clicked into place. When the blanket was finally unwrapped, Pia emerged transformed in the eyes of the tribe. Medicine Woman presented her with a new name, Sunlight on Water, chosen to honor both her golden hair and her adaptable spirit. While she would always be Pia to Strong Bear, her Apache name would be used in tribal ceremonies henceforth. The celebration continued throughout the day with feasting, dancing, and storytelling. Strong Bear noticed that even some who had opposed Pia's presence now offered congratulations, though Black Hawk and his closest allies remained conspicuously absent. That evening, as the festivities continued, Strong Bear found Pia sitting quietly at the edge of the gathering, her feathers tracing the ochre mark on her forehead. "Are you well, daughter?" he asked, the word feeling right on his tongue for the first time. Pia looked up, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "Father," she replied, testing the word with equal care. Then she smiled, a full, unguarded smile that transformed her solemn face into one of pure joy. No further words were needed between them. The blanket had done its work, binding what had already been joined in their hearts. The season of falling leaves brought change to the Apache camp. Pia, now officially Strong Bear's daughter, moved with new confidence among the tribe. Most accepted her, impressed by her growing fluency in their language and her dedication to learning their ways. She joined the other children in daily tasks, no longer an outsider, but still uniquely herself. Strong Bear watched her integration with quiet satisfaction. The warrior who once stood apart now found himself drawn into tribal life through Pia, participating in communal activities he had previously avoided. The change did not go unnoticed. "The great warrior grows soft," Black Hawk muttered to his followers, though never within Strong Bear's hearing. The peaceful rhythm of their new life was disrupted when the hunting party returned early, faces grim with concerning news. Strong Bear was summoned immediately to Chief Running Elk's lodge. "Spef," the chief commanded once the senior hunters had gathered. Two-Step, the tribe's most skilled tracker, placed a torn piece of blue cloth in the center of the circle. "We found this by the southern creek, where our territories meet the white man's claimed lands. There were many tracks, horses wearing the metal shoes, men with the hard-heeled boots." Strong Bear picked up the fabric, recognizing the distinctive color of cavalry uniforms. "How many?" "A small group, perhaps 5 or 6. Scouts only, but where scouts travel, soldiers follow." Chief Running Elk's face remained impassive, but concern shadowed his eyes. "How far?" 2 days' ride, moving slowly. They searched the old settler wagon trail. Two-Step hesitated. "They stopped at the place where we found the child." A heavy silence filled the lodge. Everyone understood the implication. The bluecoats were searching for something or someone. "We should move the camp north," suggested an elder. "Avoid contact, and abandon our winter hunting grounds," Black Hawk challenged. "Hide like prey instead of standing as warriors." Strong Bear remained silent, turning the scrap of blue cloth between his fingers. His thoughts were not of territory or pride, but of Pia. Chief Running Elk noticed his distraction. "Strong Bear, what troubles your thoughts?" "If they seek the child," Strong Bear said carefully, "they will not stop searching." The chief nodded slowly. "You fear for your daughter." "I fear what conflict might bring to all our people," Strong Bear corrected, though the chief's words rang true in his heart. "The bluecoats have many guns, many." After much discussion, the council decided to send additional scouts to monitor the soldiers' movements while preparing the camp for quick relocation if necessary. Strong Bear was tasked with organizing the warriors for potential defense. When he returned to his dwelling, he found Pia practicing her weaving with 2 tribal girls. The normalcy of the scene struck him painfully. How quickly this peace could shatter. That night, after the other children had returned to their families, Strong Bear sat Pia down beside their fire. The blue cloth lay hidden in his pouch, but its presence weighed on him like a stone. "I must teach you something new," he began, his voice unusually serious. Pia straightened, sensing his mood. A new skill for hunting, for safety, he corrected. If danger comes, you must know how to hide, how to stay silent, how to find your way back to me, if we are separated. Confusion crossed her face. What danger? Strong Bear considered how much to tell her, weighing truth against fear. Blue-coat soldiers have been seen near our territory. Pia's face paled slightly at the mention of soldiers, and her hand instinctively rose to the arrowhead pendant at her neck. Memories of the attack that had orphaned her still haunted her dreams occasionally. "Will they hurt us?" she asked, her voice small but steady. "We do not know their purpose," Strong Bear answered, truthfully, "but I will prepare you as a father must." Over the following days, Strong Bear intensified Pia's training. He showed her hiding places within the camp and in the surrounding landscape. He taught her special bird calls they could use to signal each other. He made her practice moving silently through brush, leaving no trail. Some tribal members whispered that Strong Bear was being excessive, protective to the point of fear. Black Hawk used it as further evidence of the warrior's supposed weakening. But Medicine Woman nodded approvingly. "He teaches what she must know in this world," the old woman commented. "Both worlds in On the fourth day after the discovery of the blue cloth, Pia approached Strong Bear with something clutched in her small hand. She opened her palm to reveal a carefully carved wooden figure, a bear standing protectively over a smaller figure. "I made this," she said proudly. "Medicine Woman helped me with the cutting, but I shaped it myself." Her face grew serious. "She said it will protect us from the bluecoats." Strong Bear examined the crude but heartfelt carving. Despite himself, he felt moved by her effort to protect them through the spiritual practices she was learning. "It is well made," he said, handing it back. "Keep it with you." That night, Strong Bear stood at the edge of the camp, staring in the direction from which the soldiers might come. The piece of torn blue cloth was now tied around his wrist, a reminder of the threat, a focus for his vigilance. As a warrior, he had never feared battle, but now, with Pia's wooden carving tucked into his belt, he faced a new kind of fear, not for himself, but for the small, fierce heart he had come to treasure above all else. The cavalry arrived at midday. They appeared on the ridge overlooking the Apache camp, 6 men on horseback, blue uniforms, stark against the autumn landscape. At their head rode a tall officer, his posture rigid with authority. The Apache had been warned by their scout. Rather than appearing surprised or fearful, Chief Running Elk stood ready in the center of the camp, flanked by the council elders. Strong Bear positioned himself slightly apart, his hand resting casually on his knife hilt. He had insisted Pia remain inside their dwelling, though he knew her curiosity would be fighting against his command. The soldiers approached slowly, hands visible showing caution but not immediate hostility. The officer raised his hand in greeting as they reached the edge of the camp. "I am Captain James Hollister, United States Cavalry," he announced in a voice accustomed to command. His eyes scanned the gathered Apache, assessing threats and defenses with military precision. Chief Running Elk stepped forward. "I am chief of this band. Why do you come to our lands?" The captain dismounted, signaling his men to remain on horseback. From his pocket he withdrew a silver watch, checking it briefly before returning it to his vest. The gesture seemed oddly formal in the wilderness setting. "We're conducting an investigation following reports of a settler family attacked near here approximately 8 months ago," Captain Hollister explained. "The Harrison family, mother, father, and child." Strong Bear felt his muscles tense at the mention of a child. Beside him, 2 steps shifted slightly, a nearly imperceptible signal of shared concern. "Many die in this harsh land," Chief Running Elk replied neutrally. "We did not attack these settlers you seek." "I didn't say you did," the captain answered, his tone measured. "But we have reason to believe the child may have survived. A girl about 7 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes." The description hung in the air between them. Strong Bear maintained his impassive expression through years of warrior discipline, but his heart hammered against his ribs. "We have heard stories," Chief Running Elk said carefully, "of bandits who prey on settlers, Perhaps these are the ones you seek. Captain Hollister pulled out his pocket watch again, opening its silver case. The soft ticking seemed unnaturally loud in the tense silence. Chief, I'll be direct. We've been tracking for weeks. Signs lead here. If the child survived and is with your people, it would be best for all concerned if you simply told us. Why do you seek this child now after so many moons? Medicine Woman's voice cut through the standoff as she approached from her dwelling. The captain's eyes narrowed at the old woman's challenge. Family back east, grandparents with means and influence. They want the child returned to her own kind. Her own kind, Medicine Woman repeated, her weathered face unreadable. And what kind is that, Captain? Before he could answer, a commotion arose from the direction of Strong Bear's dwelling. Despite his instructions, Pia had emerged and now stood frozen as all eyes turned toward her. Her blonde hair and blue eyes, so striking among the Apache, immediately confirmed what the captain sought. Strong Bear moved quickly to her side, his massive frame positioning protectively between Pia and the soldiers. The girl pressed against his leg but did not hide her face. "My God," the captain breathed, his composure momentarily broken. He took an instinctive step forward, stopping when Strong Bear's hand moved to his knife. Recovering quickly, Hollister addressed the chief. "It seems you've been harboring the Harrison girl." "Harboring?" Medicine Woman challenged. "You speak as if she were a thing to be hidden. We found her clinging to her dead mother's body, taken by bandits' bullets, not Apache arrows. We have given her food, shelter, family." The captain's eyes moved from the old woman to Strong Bear, noting the protective stance, then to Pia herself. With deliberate movements, he again removed his watch, opened it, and studied it as if consulting some hidden answer within its silver case. "The law is clear," he finally said, snapping the watch closed. "The child must be returned to her legal guardians." "I am her guardian," Strong Bear spoke for the first time, his deep voice carrying the quiet certainty of absolute conviction. "By Apache law and by her choice." Captain Hollister measured the warrior with a calculating gaze. "You understand this can't end here. I have my orders." Chief Running Elk stepped between them, ever the diplomat. "The day grows late, Captain. Our customs require us to offer travelers food and shelter before serious matters are discussed. Will you and your men accept our hospitality for the night? We can speak more of this tomorrow." Hollister hesitated, then nodded curtly. Tribal hospitality was something he understood from previous encounters with native peoples. It would also give him time to assess the situation more thoroughly. As the soldiers were led to a guest area at the camp's edge, the captain paused beside Strong Bear and Pia. He pulled out his watch once more, the silver case catching the afternoon sun. "Time is running short," he said quietly, more to Strong Bear than to the child. "By noon tomorrow, I must leave with the girl or send for reinforcements. Those are my orders." Strong Bear met his gaze without flinching. "Then use your time wisely, Captain. Observe with open eye." That night, as Pia finally slept, Strong Bear could still hear the faint ticking of the captain's watch from across the camp, counting down the moments until a decision that would change all their lives. Dawn brought urgent whispers throughout the Apache camp. The elders gathered in council lodge, while women prepared a meal for their unexpected guests. Strong Bear had spent the night in silent contemplation after ensuring Pia finally slept. Now he moved quietly through his dwelling, selecting items with careful deliberation: fire-starting flint, dried meat, a small knife suitable for Pia's hands, a water skin, healing herbs. Each item went into a small leather pouch, embroidered with protective symbols, a journey pouch meant for emergencies when one must travel light and fast. "Are we leaving?" Pia's voice startled him. She stood in the doorway watching his preparations with solemn understanding beyond her years. Strong Bear considered lying to protect her from worry, then decided against it. Their relationship had been built on truth. "Perhaps," he admitted, "if necessary." Pia nodded, accepting this possibility with remarkable calm. Because of the Bluecoat leader, Captain Hollister believes you belong with your mother's people, and you believe I belong here. Strong Bear paused in his preparations. What do you believe, Sunlight on Water? He asked, using her Apache name. Pia touched the arrowhead pendant at her neck, then the feather still woven into her hair. I belong with my father, she said simply. The certainty in her voice strengthened his resolve. Strong Bear added a final item to the pouch, the white stone from the council vote that had allowed Pia to stay, a reminder of what they fought to preserve. Outside, the camp bustled with unusual activity. The cavalry soldiers remained together near their horses, watching the Apache with wary attention. Captain Hollister stood in conversation with Chief Running Elk, his silver watch periodically appearing in his hand as if to emphasize his deadline. Medicine Woman intercepted Strong Bear before he could approach. The council is divided, she murmured. Some believe fighting the Bluecoats will bring destruction to all. Others say surrendering the child dishonors our adoption ceremonies. And what do you say, wise one? Strong Bear asked. Her ancient eyes held his. I say the child's spirit has chosen its path already. But spirits must sometimes take difficult journeys. Before he could question her meaning, Black Hawk approached, his expression triumphant. The great Strong Bear plans to flee like a frightened deer, he said loudly enough for nearby tribal members to hear. Taking the white child back to her people himself, perhaps. To curry favor with the Bluecoat. Strong Bear's hand moved toward his knife, but Medicine Woman touched his arm gently. He seeks to provoke you, she warned. To show the tribe your judgment is clouded by the child. With effort, Strong Bear controlled his anger. I seek only what is best for my daughter and our people. Black Hawk sneered. Your daughter? She has white skin, white blood. The spirits themselves marked her as different. The spirits see beyond skin, Medicine Woman interjected. As should you, young warrior, whose courage seems limited to words. As Black Hawk stalked away, Captain Hollister approached. His gaze moved from Strong Bear to the escape pouch, visible at his belt. Planning a trip? The captain asked, quietly. Always prepared, Strong Bear replied evenly. The captain nodded. Understanding warrior to warrior. That would be unwise. More soldiers would follow. Your entire tribe would suffer. And taking the child, would that not make her suffer? She'd be returned to her blood family, educated, cared for, raised in her own culture. This is her culture now, Strong Bear said. This is her family. Captain Hollister studied him with unexpected perceptiveness. You truly care for her. She is my daughter. By law, by heart, Strong Bear interrupted. The strongest law of all. The captain fell silent, his hand unconsciously moving to his watch pocket, before stopping. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his features. Strong Bear pressed his advantage. Watch her today, Captain. See how she moves among us. Listen to her speak our language. Then ask yourself if tearing her away serves any law worth honoring. As if summoned by their conversation, Pia appeared beside Strong Bear. To his surprise, she addressed the captain directly in careful English, words Strong Bear had never heard her speak. Good morning, sir, she said, her pronunciation rusty from disuse. Medicine Woman says you should eat with us. Captain Hollister's surprise was evident. You remember English? Pia nodded. Some words come back, like dreams. Do you remember before? Your mother, father, your real name? Pia's hand found Strong Bear's reflexively. My name is Sunlight on Water. My father stands beside me. The captain's expression remained professional, but something shifted in his eyes. I see. He glanced at the escape pouch at Strong Bear's belt. No hasty decisions today. Understand. Noon remains our deadline. After he walked away, Pia looked up at Strong Bear. Will we use that? She asked, indicating the pouch. Strong Bear touched the leather bag, feeling the white stone within. Only if there is no other path. But first, we try to make him understand. And if he cannot, Strong Bear's voice lowered to a whisper only she could hear. Then we find our own way, daughter. As we always have. The escape pouch hung heavy at his side as they walked toward the communal breakfast, a physical reminder of the choice that might lie ahead. To stay and fight for recognition of their bond, to flee into an uncertain future, leaving behind tribe, tradition, and everything except what mattered most, each other. The morning meal passed in strained politeness. Captain Hollister observed Pia with increasing interest as she moved comfortably among the Apache, speaking their language fluently, following their customs naturally. Strong Bear noted the captain's thoughtful expression with cautious hope. As the meal concluded, an unexpected interruption arrived. A lone cavalry soldier rode into camp, dust-covered and weary. He dismounted quickly, saluting the captain before handing over a leather satchel. "Found it, sir," the soldier reported, "hidden under a false floor in the wagon wreckage, just like the informant said." Captain Hollister opened the satchel, removing a weather-worn leather journal. He examined it briefly, his expression changing from professional detachment to genuine surprise. "This changes matters," he murmured. The captain requested a private meeting with Chief Running Elk, Strong Bear, and Medicine Woman. As tribal leaders conferred in the council lodge, Pia was kept outside with the other children, though her worried glances toward the lodge did not go unnoticed by Strong Bear. Inside, Captain Hollister placed the journal on the ground between them. "This belonged to Thomas Harrison, the girl's father," he explained. "A colleague in Fort Benton suggested we search the wagon wreckage more thoroughly." "What does this have to do with the child's future?" Strong Bear asked impatiently. "Everything, potentially." The captain opened the journal to marked pages. Harrison wasn't just any settler. He was a government representative working on peaceful relations with tribes in this territory. And according to his writings, he had a particular connection to your people. Medicine Woman leaned forward, her aged eyes examining the journal's pages with unexpected recognition. "The peace speaker," she whispered. "The one who came 5 summers ago." Captain Hollister nodded. "Harrison visited your tribe during a diplomatic mission. He writes extensively about your customs, your fairness, his respect for your people." He turned to specific entries. He also documents an agreement, unofficial but meaningful, recognizing Apache historical claims to the Eastern Valley watersheds. Chief Running Elk's eyes narrowed. "We remember this man. He spoke true words while others spoke with forked tongues, but he left, promising to return with official papers. He was trying to," the captain explained. "This final journey was to bring updated treaties for discussion. The attack prevented that." Strong Bear, focused solely on Pia's fate, cut through the diplomatic talk. "What does this mean for my daughter?" The captain studied him with new consideration. "Harrison writes that if anything happened to him and his wife, his daughter should be placed with her grandparents in Boston." He paused significantly, but he also adds that if the Apache tribe were willing, he would consider it an honor for his child to learn their ways during yearly visits. "He respected our people," Medicine Woman stated. "Evidently." Captain Hollister closed the journal. "Harrison believed in building bridges between our worlds. From what I've seen today, his daughter has already become such a bridge." Hope sparked in Strong Bear's chest, but he contained it. "You still intend to take her?" "I have orders," the captain acknowledged, "but this journal provides context that my superiors lack. Harrison wasn't just any settler. He was a respected government agent whose work remains unfinished." He considered the leather-bound book thoughtfully. His daughter's unique position could eventually help fulfill his mission. Chief Running Elk, ever the strategist, seized the opportunity. Perhaps an arrangement could be reached, one that honors both the father's wishes and the child's current bonds. The discussion continued as they explored possibility. Strong Bear remained guarded, trusting neither the captain's apparent flexibility nor the government he represented. Yet the journal had undeniably shifted the conversation from confrontation to negotiation. When they finally emerged from the council lodge, Pia ran immediately to Strong Bear, her eyes questioning. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, but offered no promises he couldn't guarantee. Captain Hollister approached, holding the journal. He knelt to Pia's height, a gesture that reminded Strong Bear of his own first connections with the child. "Do you remember this?" the captain asked gently, offering the journal. Pia hesitated, then touched the worn leather cover. A flicker of recognition crossed her face. "Father wrote in this, every night by the fire." "That's right," Hollister confirmed. "Your birth father was a good man who respected the Apache people. He wanted you to know their ways." Confusion clouded Pia's expression as she looked between the journal and Strong Bear. Two fathers. The concept hung in the air between them, complex, challenging yet somehow opening a path forward that hadn't existed before. Strong Bear felt something shift in his understanding, a recognition that Pia's past needn't be erased for her present to flourish. "Two worlds," Medicine Woman corrected gently, stepping forward. "Both honoring you." Captain Hollister stood, his decision apparently made. "I need to send a dispatch to my superiors. The situation is more nuanced than they understood." He looked directly at Strong Bear. "I cannot promise what they'll decide, but Harrison's journal will carry significant weight." As the captain walked away, journal in hand, Strong Bear felt Pia's small fingers slip into his. The leather-bound book that had unexpectedly emerged from the past had not resolved everything, but it had opened a door between worlds that had seemed irrevocably separated. "What happens now?" Pia asked, her voice small but steady. Strong Bear squeezed her hand gently. "Now we wait, little one, and we hope that wisdom prevails." Captain Hollister's dispatch rider departed at dawn, carrying messages to Fort Benton. The waiting began, an uneasy truce extending the captain's noon deadline indefinitely. As the Apache continued their daily routines, the cavalry soldiers remained camped at the edge of the village, their presence a constant reminder of unresolved questions. For Pia, the days that followed brought strange new experiences. Captain Hollister, seemingly intent on evaluating her potential to navigate both worlds, began sharing aspects of the white settlers' culture she had nearly forgotten. "Do you remember your letters?" he asked on the second morning, sitting cross-legged outside his tent with a small primer book open before him. Pia stared at the strange markings on the page, fragments of memory stirring. "A.P.," she began hesitantly, her finger tracing the shape. Strong Bear watched from a distance, his face impassive, but his heart troubled. Each English word, Pia recalled, seemed to pull her slightly away from the Apache world, where she had found belonging. Yet he forced himself to remain silent, understanding that her future might depend on demonstrating this dual heritage. "She learns quickly," Medicine Woman observed, joining Strong Bear in his vigil, "as she did with our ways. She should not have to choose," Strong Bear said quietly. "Perhaps that is the wisdom in this difficulty," the old woman replied. "Not to choose one world over another, but to walk in both." By the fourth day, Pia had recovered significant English vocabulary, though she still thought and dreamed in Apache. The primer book became her constant companion, a small leather-bound volume with simple English words paired with illustrations. When not practicing with the captain, she would sit beside Strong Bear, earnestly teaching him the strange words as he had once taught her Apache. "Tree," she would say, pointing to the illustration, then adding, "Tuye" in Apache. Strong Bear made halting attempts at the English words, his deep voice transforming the alien sounds. His efforts brought delighted smiles to Pia's face, rare treasures in these uncertain days. Not everyone viewed these developments positively. Black Hawk and his followers watched with growing resentment. "She reveals our words to the enemy," Black Hawk complained to anyone who would listen. "Soon they will use our own language to trick us." Chief Running Elk silenced such talk when it reached him. "Knowledge flows both ways," he reminded the tribe. "The child teaches them about us as we learn about them. This is the path of wisdom, not weakness." On the fifth evening, as Pia slept in their dwelling, Captain Hollister sought out Strong Bear by the communal fire. "She's remarkable," the officer said without preamble. Most children her age would be traumatized beyond recovery by what she's experienced. Strong Bear continued sharpening his knife, neither acknowledging the compliment nor rejecting it. "You've done well by her," Hollister continued. Undeterred, the warrior's silence. "She's healthy, intelligent, confident, different from most white children her age." "She is Apache now," Strong Bear replied simply. "And yet still Harrison's daughter." The captain sat beside him, maintaining a respectful distance. "The world isn't as simple as either of us might wish." Strong Bear finally looked at the officer directly. "What will your leaders decide?" "I don't know," Hollister admitted. "The grandparents have considerable influence, but Harrison's journal carries weight too. He was well respected. And what would you decide if the choice were yours alone?" The captain considered this carefully. "I've been watching her move between our worlds these past days. She belongs to both in different ways." He gestured towards Strong Bear's dwelling where Pia slept. Forcing her to choose completely would harm her. For the first time, Strong Bear felt genuine respect for the Blue-Coat leader. "Then we have found one point of agreement." Later that night, unable to sleep, Strong Bear found Pia sitting outside their dwelling, the primer book open in the moonlight. "You should rest," he said gently. "I'm practicing," she replied, not looking up from the book. "If I remember enough English, maybe they'll let me stay." The simple logic of her strategy, so earnest, so desperate, struck Strong Bear deeply. He sat beside her, pulling her small form against his side. "Whatever happens," he promised, "we remain father and daughter. Two worlds cannot change that." Pia looked up at him, her blue eyes reflecting moonlight. "I don't want to leave you. Then we will find a way for you to stay." He touched the primer book gently. "Perhaps this learning serves a purpose beyond what the captain intends. Perhaps it builds a bridge instead of a wall." Pia nodded, understanding dawning in her expression. She closed the book but kept it clutched to her chest, alongside the arrowhead pendant. Physical symbols of her divided heritage. Not divided, Strong Bear corrected himself mentally. Doubled. Enriched. "Two paths can meet," he told her, echoing medicine woman's wisdom. "The deer and the eagle follow different trails but drink from the same stream." As Pia finally drifted to sleep against his shoulder, Strong Bear gazed toward the cavalry camp where Captain Hollister's tent stood dark and silent. Between them lay possibilities neither had imagined before, compromises that might preserve what mattered most while building something new. The primer book slipped from Pia's loosening grip. Strong Bear caught it gently, running his fingers over the strange markings that were slowly becoming meaningful to him as well. Another language, another world, not to replace their own, but to expand it. 7 days after the dispatch rider departed, disaster struck without warning. A hunting party returned at dawn, racing their horses into camp with urgent news. "Fire in the eastern canyon, 2, Step," reported breathlessly. "The winds drive it toward our camp." Chief Running Elk mobilized immediately. "Women and children to the river," he ordered. Warriors prepared to create fire breaks. Captain Hollister and his men, awakened by the commotion, quickly grasped the situation. "We'll help," the captain offered, his military training asserting itself. "My men know firefighting techniques from the forts." The unlikely alliance formed instantly in the face of common danger. Strong Bear organized tribal warriors, while Hollister directed his soldiers, their previous tensions temporarily forgotten. Fire made no distinction between Apache and white man. Medicine woman hurriedly prepared emergency supplies, filling pouches with burn remedies, crushed yucca, mashed aloe pulp, willow bark tea. She pressed one such medicine pouch into Strong Bear's hands. "For those who cannot reach the river," she explained. As the tribe evacuated toward the safety of water, Strong Bear searched frantically for Pia. She had been playing with other children at first light. Now, with smoke already visible on the horizon, she was nowhere to be found. "The gathering meadow," a tribal woman suggested. Several children went to collect morning berries. The meadow lay directly in the fire's expected path. Without hesitation, Strong Bear ran toward the danger, the medicine pouch secured at his belt. Behind him, Captain Hollister noticed his departure and followed, calling for 2 of his men to join him. They found the children, 4 Apache youths, and Pia, already fleeing the advancing smoke. Strong Bear counted with relief as they ran toward him, but his heart froze when Pia suddenly turned back. "Littlefoot," she cried, pointing toward a small Apache boy who had fallen behind, now collapsed and coughing in the thickening smoke. Before Strong Bear could reach her, Pia had darted back toward the struggling child. The fire crested the ridge above them, sparks and burning debris riding the wind ahead of the main blaze. Through swirling smoke, Strong Bear saw Pia reach the boy, trying to help him stand. "Take the others," Strong Bear shouted to Hollister as he raced toward the 2 children. The captain nodded, gathering the other children and retreating toward the river. As Strong Bear reached Pia and Littlefoot, a burning branch crashed down nearby, sending up a shower of embers. The boy was barely conscious, overwhelmed by smoke. Strong Bear lifted him easily, then grabbed Pia's hand to lead her back. Too late, he realized the fire had cut off their return path. Smoke obscured visibility in all directions, the roar of flames drowning all other sounds. Pia pressed against him, frightened but composed. "The cave," she said suddenly, tugging his hand. "Where you taught me to find shelter." Strong Bear oriented himself through the smoke. The small cave in the ridge wall might indeed provide refuge, if they could reach it. With Littlefoot over one shoulder and Pia's hand gripped tightly in his, he fought through the increasingly dangerous conditions. Twice they were forced to change direction as the unpredictable fire jumped ahead of them. Strong Bear's arm was scorched by falling embers, the pain fierce but secondary to his determination. The medicine pouch at his belt began to smolder from a stray spark. When they finally reached the cave, Littlefoot had stopped coughing, a dangerous sign. Strong Bear laid him carefully on the cool stone floor, then used the partially scorched medicine pouch to treat him. The pungent smell of singed herbs filled the small space as he worked. Like this, Strong Bear instructed Pia, showing her how to apply the healing paste to the boy's chest and face. Despite his own injury, he worked methodically, combining medicine woman's remedies with his own field experience. Gradually, Littlefoot's breathing improved. Outside, the fire's roar intensified as it swept past their shelter, consuming everything in its path. In the cave's dim safety, Pia helped tend to Strong Bear's burned arm, mimicking his earlier movements with careful precision. "You risked yourself for him," Strong Bear said quietly, nodding toward the sleeping boy. "You taught me," Pia replied simply. "We protect our people." Hours passed as they waited out the fire's fury. When silence finally returned to the forest, they emerged cautiously into a transformed landscape. Blackened trees stood like sentinels over scorched earth. The air smelled of ash and destruction. Strong Bear carried Littlefoot while Pia walked beside him, her face and clothing smudged with soot, but her steps steady. As they crested a ridge, they saw figures searching the burned terrain below. Apache warriors and cavalry soldiers, working side by side. Captain Hollister spotted them first, pointing and shouting to alert the others. As the search party converged on them, Strong Bear noted the genuine relief on the captain's face when he saw Pia safe. "We thought you might be lost," Hollister said, his usual formality temporarily abandoned. "My father knows the land," Pia replied, her hand still firmly in Strong Bear's. "He taught me how to survive." The scorched medicine pouch hung at Strong Bear's belt, damaged but still intact, like their bond, tested by fire but enduring. As they made their way back to the river where the tribe had gathered, Apache and cavalry together, Strong Bear realized something fundamental had shifted. In facing a common enemy, ancient barriers had temporarily fallen. In saving an Apache child, Pia had demonstrated where her heart truly belonged. And in the captain's thoughtful gaze as he watched them, Strong Bear saw the first real understanding of what he had been trying to explain all along, that family transcends blood, that belonging comes from the heart, and that some bonds once formed cannot be broken without destroying something precious. The fire's aftermath brought unexpected clarity. As the Apache tribe relocated to their secondary camp near the river, the shared experience of fighting the blaze alongside the cavalry had softened boundaries. Captain Hollister's men helped construct temporary shelters, while Apache hunters shared their knowledge of unburned areas where game could still be found. In this atmosphere of cautious cooperation, the dispatch rider finally returned, dusty and travel-worn, carrying sealed orders from Fort Benton. The entire tribe watched as Captain Hollister read the documents, his expression giving nothing away. That evening, a formal council convened, expanded now to include not only tribal leaders, but also Captain Hollister and Strong Bear, with Pia sitting quietly between them. The fire had delayed decisions, but could postpone them no longer. "My superiors have reviewed the situation," Hollister began, placing Thomas Harrison's journal before the council. "The child's grandparents in Boston still demand her return. However, given Harrison's documented respect for the Apache people and his expressed wishes regarding his daughter's education, they propose a compromise." Strong Bear's hand rested protectively on Pia's shoulder as the captain continued. "Pia Harrison would divide her time, primarily remaining here with the Apache who have raised her these past months, but traveling east for formal education during certain periods each year. She would become, as her father envisioned, a bridge between our people." Murmurs rippled through the gathering. Chief Running Elk leaned forward. "And who would ensure this arrangement is honored?" "White men's promises often change with the seasons." "A formal treaty," Hollister replied, producing another document, recognizing both the Apache claim to this territory as Harrison documented, and establishing Pia's unique status. "I've been authorized to negotiate terms acceptable to both sides." What followed was hours of careful discussion, the Apache insisting on guarantees for their land rights, Hollister maintaining certain requirements for Pia's education. Strong Bear focused solely on her welfare and happiness. Throughout, Pia sat quietly observant, understanding that her future was being determined by these deliberations. Near midnight, as terms were finally being agreed upon, the tribal stone artisan approached the council circle. In his hands he carried a flat river stone, freshly carved during the negotiations. One side depicted traditional Apache symbols, mountains, eagle and bear. The other showed images representing the white settlers, a book, a house, a cross, a bridge stone, the artisan explained, presenting it to Chief Running Elk. "To mark this unusual agreement between our peoples." The chief examined the stone, then passed it to Captain Hollister, who studied it respectfully before handing it to Strong Bear. As the stone completed its circuit around the council, each leader touching it in turn, it gathered significance beyond its simple form, becoming a physical embodiment of the agreement taking shape. Finally, the stone reached Pia. She held it carefully, tracing the carvings with small fingers that had learned both to string an Apache bow and to write English letters. Looking up at Strong Bear, she asked a question that cut to the heart of her concerns. "Will I still be your daughter when I go to learn their ways?" The council fell silent, recognizing the child's question transcended politics and treaties. Strong Bear knelt beside her, his massive hand enveloping hers around the bridge stone. "Always," he promised. "Distance cannot change what we are to each other." Captain Hollister, witnessing this exchange, added his own assurance. "The agreement specifically acknowledges Strong Bear as your Apache father. Your grandparents will be informed of his importance in your life." By dawn, the terms were set. Pia would remain with the Apache for 8 moons each year, spending the remaining time in Boston learning the ways of her birth culture. A military escort would accompany her journeys between worlds. Most importantly, her unique status would help secure protection for Apache lands against further encroachment. As the council dispersed, Strong Bear and Pia walked together toward the river. The bridge stone remained in her hands, a tangible reminder of the path ahead. "Are you afraid?" Strongbear asked gently. Pierre considered the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. "Yes," she admitted, "but you taught me courage is not the absence of fear." Strongbear nodded, pride warming his chest. The greatest warriors acknowledge their fears, then move forward despite them. "Will you be well when I am gone?" The question surprised him, her concern for his welfare matching his for hers. "I will miss you each day," he answered honestly, "but I will be strong knowing you will return." They reached the river's edge, where a natural stone bridge spanned a narrow section. Pierre placed the carved bridge stone carefully at the crossing point. "Two paths," she said, echoing his earlier teaching, "but they meet at the water." Captain Hollister, observing from a respectful distance, approached only when Strongbear beckoned him forward. The captain's gaze fell on the bridge stone and its placement. "We'll depart in 3 days," he said. "Time enough for preparations and proper goodbyes." Strongbear nodded his appreciation for this consideration. The old enemies stood side by side, watching as Pierre tested her weight on the stone bridge, crossing back and forth with increasing confidence. "She will need both worlds," Strongbear acknowledged quietly. "And both worlds need her," Hollister replied. "Harrison would be proud of what she's becoming." As Pierre completed another crossing, Strongbear recognized the truth that Medicine Woman had seen from the beginning. His greatest gift to his daughter was not protection from life's challenges, but the strength to face them, to walk between worlds with her head high, her spirit strong, and her heart always knowing where home truly lay. 1 full cycle of seasons had passed since the agreement was forged. The tribe had returned to their original camp after spring rains brought new growth to the burned forest. Life had settled into a rhythm different from before, yet somehow richer. Strongbear stood at the edge of the camp, scanning the horizon. Today was the day. After 4 moons in the white man's world, Pierre would return to her Apache family. Though they had exchanged letters carried by military couriers, Strongbear laboriously learning to read her simple English messages, nothing replaced the presence of his daughter. "She comes," announced Two-Step, the tribe's keenest-eyed scout. "Riders from the east." The entire tribe gathered to witness her arrival. Even Black Hawk, who had gradually accepted the unusual arrangement, stood among them. Medicine Woman took her place beside Strongbear, her ancient eyes bright with anticipation. "Your heart beats like a young warrior's," she observed with amusement. Strongbear didn't deny it. 4 moons is long." The old woman patted his arm. "Yet you survived, as did she. The strongest bonds bend but do not break." The riders appeared on the eastern ridge, Captain Hollister leading a small detachment with a smaller figure riding confidently in their midst. As they approached, Strongbear felt momentary uncertainty. Would she be changed? Would the white man's world have dimmed her Apache spirit? The riders halted at a respectful distance from the camp. Protocol established during the past year required formal greetings between the cavalry and tribal leaders. Chief Running Elk stepped forward, raising his hand in welcome. Captain Hollister, now familiar with Apache customs, responded appropriately. Then the smaller rider dismounted, removing a wide-brimmed hat to reveal golden hair that had grown longer during her absence. Pierre stood for a moment, taking in the familiar sights of the camp, her blue eyes searching until they found Strongbear. Protocol forgotten, she ran forward. Strongbear knelt to receive her embrace, his massive frame enveloping her small one. The tribe watched this reunion with approval. Even those who had once opposed now recognized the genuine bond between them. "I missed you, father," Pierre said in Apache, her accent unchanged despite months speaking English. "And I you, sunlight on water," he replied using her Apache name. As the formal welcomes proceeded, Strongbear noted subtle changes in his daughter. She stood slightly taller, her English clothes finer than the simple dress she had departed in. Around her neck hung something new, a silver locket, ornately crafted in the white man's style. Later, as they sat together in their dwelling, kept exactly as she had left it, Pia opened the locket to show him miniature paintings of an elderly couple. "My mother's parents," she explained. "They are kind, though they understand little of Apache ways." Strong Bear studied the tiny faces so similar to Pia's in coloring, yet unfamiliar in expression. "Do they treat you well?" "Yes," she assured him. "They have many rules I did not know, but they listen when I explain our ways." She smiled mischievously. "I am teaching my grandmother to weave baskets." The thought of an elderly Boston woman attempting Apache basketry brought a rare smile to Strong Bear's face. "And you're learning," Pia described the school, the books, the strange customs of city life. She spoke with enthusiasm about new knowledge, yet without the longing of someone who had found her true home elsewhere. "The children there asked many questions about my Apache family," she said. "I told them of the mighty Strong Bear who became my father." That night, as the welcome feast concluded, Pia approached Medicine Woman with a request that had clearly been planned in advance. The old woman listened, then nodded approvingly. Under the full moon, with the tribe gathered to witness, Pia performed a ceremony of her own creation. She removed both the arrowhead pendant Strong Bear had given her and the silver locket from her grandparents. With Medicine Woman's help, she combined them on a single strand of leather, woven with both Apache beads and Boston silver. "Two worlds, one heart," she explained. As Strong Bear fastened the new creation around her neck. "As you taught me." The following day brought an echo of the past that none had anticipated. As the tribe enjoyed games of skill and strength, Pia approached Strong Bear with a familiar length of rope. "Do you remember?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with challenge. Strong Bear recognized the tug-of-war rope from their first meeting. A ripple of amusement passed through the watching tribe as Pia positioned herself, small hands gripping one end while Strong Bear took the other. "Defeat me, and I'll give you everything," Strong Bear recited, his deep voice carrying the memory of that day a year ago. This time, he made no pretense of allowing her to win. He pulled with genuine effort, though still restrained, to match her size. To his surprise, Pia had learned new techniques during her time away. She angled her body, used the ground for leverage, and employed strategy where strength failed. The contest ended as before, with the mighty warrior deliberately taking a step across the line, conceding victory to the small girl who had changed his life. Laughter and cheers erupted from the watching tribe. Medicine Woman's voice rose above the others. "The greatest victory is not won through strength, but through heart." As Pia launched herself into Strong Bear's arms in celebration, the dual-world necklace caught the sunlight, arrowhead, and locket side by side against her heart. No longer symbols of divided loyalty, but of a life enriched by both worlds and a love that had transcended every boundary placed before it.